I don't want to be doing another bloody segment on Meghan Markle and Harry, right? It makes them newsworthy. So you either then ignore what people are talking about and debating and having all the silly stuff about them. 57,000 people complained to the television regulator, Ofcom, in the UK. A world record, I'm proud to say, complained about me for not believing Princess Pinocchio. And eventually my boss had said, can you just apologise to Meghan Markle or you're going to have to, maybe lose your job. I went, I'll take the job option, thanks, I'll leave. And I walked off into the sunset.
Imagine turning on live television expecting the usual back-and-forth debate, nothing out of the ordinary, when suddenly the entire tone of the show shifts. No warning, no build-up, just Piers Morgan leaning forward, lifting a set of photos, and instantly changing the conversation.
Do you see any of the real Diana in Meghan? Did you?
No.
Really?
No. Sorry.
In that moment, what viewers thought they knew about Meghan Markle's past was thrown into question, because this wasn't gossip whispered online or speculation buried in comment sections. This was a live broadcast, watched by millions, where a carefully maintained public image appeared to crack in real time.
It was when all the racism claims turned out to be bullshit. The mental health claims were bullshit. All of it was bullshit, designed to damage and attack the royal family, the monarchy, and all of it. And it made me cute.
And as the cameras kept rolling, one thought spread just as fast as the clips themselves. If these images were real, then the story everyone had been told might only be part of the truth. Piers Morgan didn't raise his voice or play to the cameras. He let the images speak for themselves. As the photos appeared on screen, the studio atmosphere shifted almost instantly.
And she's living the life she probably wanted all along.
Yes.
A life of unparalleled luxury and riches that she got by marrying a handsome British prince. She's living back in the state that she came from.
What had started as a routine discussion turned into a moment of visible discomfort, not just for the panel, but for viewers watching at home. These weren't blurry screenshots or recycled tabloid shots. They looked deliberate, polished, and personal.
Once a Soho House basic, always a Soho House basic.
The kind of images that weren't meant to resurface years later. And because they were shown so calmly, without theatrics, the impact hit harder. Social media reacted in real time, clips spreading faster than producers could control, as people tried to understand why these photos were being revealed now, and what they were really meant to say.
Are there any fans of Meghan Markle in tonight? Oh, hang on. There is one lone hand has raised
Subversive.
Up here. Actually, that is one more than I expected, I have to be honest.
What made the reaction explode wasn't just the photos themselves, but the contrast they created. For years, Meghan Markle's public narrative has centered on perseverance, modest beginnings, and a steady climb built through hard work. But the images shown on air suggested a very different backdrop. Exclusive venues, powerful company, and a level of access that didn't align with the version of events many people believed.
It was planned from the beginning. She denied being interested in the royal family, which she totally was. I know someone who knows the ex-husband who said she had a vision board with Prince Harry on it.
The visuals didn't accuse, but they quietly challenged the story. And once that contradiction became visible, viewers started asking questions that couldn't be brushed aside. How did this access happen? And why had this part of the past never been part of the conversation? And then came the part that made everything feel even heavier, the silence.
This is what Meghan has been doing. She's a piece of Klingon, like she clings to somebody who can get her there. So Meghan manages to befriend one person of a very popular group, and then that person introduces her to the others. And because she's being brought in by somebody they trust, she's welcomed in.
For a public figure known for rapid responses, firm statements, and aggressive reputation management, the lack of any reaction stood out immediately. No clarification, no pushback, no carefully worded message from sources close to Meghan, just quiet. And in the media world, silence is never neutral. It creates a vacuum, and that vacuum gets filled fast. Commentators, analysts, and casual viewers alike began dissecting every detail, not just of the photos, but of the response that never came. If the images were misleading, why not say so? If they were taken out of context, why not correct the record?
He knows, and everybody all around the world, that you would want to know. The very rich, the very connected. Anybody who is anybody would be in Marcus Anderson's little black book. And he's never betrayed a confidence. He's never made a slip.
The absence of any rebuttal made the moment feel less like a misunderstanding and more like a calculated pause. That pause sent people digging deeper. Old interviews resurfaced, timelines were re-examined, past statements were compared against newer ones. Suddenly, moments that once seemed insignificant started looking connected. Deleted blogs, archived photos, relationships that quietly disappeared from public view. The longer the silence continued, the more it reinforced the idea that this wasn't just about a few images. It was about control of a narrative that had finally slipped out of reach. Viewers weren't just reacting emotionally anymore, they were connecting dots. At the same time, attention shifted back to Piers Morgan himself. This didn't feel like a random editorial choice or a spontaneous decision made minutes before going live. It felt deliberate, measured, almost inevitable. Piers has never hidden his skepticism, and he's never softened his tone when he believes he's being misled. To many watching, this reveal looked like the culmination of years of tension, not a one-off media stunt. The calm way he presented the photos suggested he knew exactly what reaction they would provoke, and he let that reaction unfold without interference. As the minutes passed, it became clear that the real impact wasn't happening in the studio. It was happening online. Threads multiplied. Clips were replayed frame by frame. People debated not just what the photos showed, but what they represented. A version of the past that didn't fit neatly into the public storyline. And once that door opened, it became impossible to close. Because when silence meets visual evidence, speculation doesn't slow down. It accelerates. And by the time the segment ended, one thing was undeniable. This story was no longer about a TV moment. It had turned into a full-blown reassessment of everything that came before. As the conversation grew, attention shifted to one recurring detail: the setting. Soho House isn't just a social club. It's a carefully gated environment where access signals status, connections, and influence. The photos suggested familiarity with that world, not occasional entry, and that distinction mattered. Viewers weren't questioning networking itself. They were questioning how early and how deeply those connections appeared to run. In an industry where introductions are everything, repeated access raised eyebrows. It suggested guidance, positioning, and a pathway that hadn't been openly discussed. That realization changed the tone of the debate. This was no longer about isolated images surfacing years later. It was about whether a key chapter of Meghan's pre-royal life had been minimized or selectively edited. Once people started viewing the photos through that lens, the discussion shifted from shock to scrutiny. And with that shift, the story gained a momentum that couldn't be dismissed as a passing controversy. With those questions in the air, viewers began looking backward, and patterns started to emerge. This wasn't the first time fragments of Meghan's past had quietly disappeared. Old blog posts vanished without explanation. Early photos were scrubbed. Former friendships faded from public view as new circles took their place. On their own, those changes once seemed harmless, even expected in entertainment. But placed alongside the leaked images, they felt deliberate. The idea of reinvention took center stage. Each new chapter of her rise appeared to come with a revised origin story, one that highlighted struggle while smoothing over moments that didn't fit the image being presented. That didn't prove anything on its own, but it did explain why these photos refused to stay buried. They represented a version of the past that hadn't been fully erased, only edited. And once viewers recognized that pattern, the conversation shifted again, from isolated controversy to a broader question about how much of the story had been selectively told. Just as the debate began to cool, an unexpected source added fresh fuel: Prince Harry's own words. In his memoir, he casually referenced Soho House as a familiar, almost routine part of Meghan's life, describing private dinners, discreet corners, and staff who seemed to know her well. To most readers, those details were meant to sound romantic. Instead, they reopened questions. The picture he painted didn't align with earlier claims that the club was merely a convenient meeting spot used sparingly. Once those passages were connected to the photos shown on live TV, the contrast became impossible to ignore. The memoir wasn't accusatory, but it was revealing in ways no critic could be. By offering unguarded insight, Harry unintentionally highlighted inconsistencies that reignited public scrutiny. What had once felt like speculation now appeared reinforced by first-hand recollections, pushing the story into a new phase, one where even the couple's own narrative seemed to undermine the version the public had been given. By this point, the conversation had moved far beyond a single TV segment or a handful of leaked photos. What people were really reacting to was a pattern: shifting stories, carefully curated images, and unanswered questions that had been building quietly for years. Each resurfaced detail added weight to the idea that this wasn't an isolated moment, but part of a much larger reinvention that never fully held together. Whether Meghan ever addresses the photos directly or continues to rely on silence, the impact is already locked in. Once the public starts reassessing a narrative, it rarely returns to its original shape. Piers Morgan may have opened the door, but it was the accumulation of inconsistencies that pushed it wide open. And as viewers continue connecting dots, one thing is clear: this story isn't fading out, it's evolving into something even harder to contain. What started as a live TV moment has grown into a full-scale reassessment of a carefully managed public story. The photos, the silence, the patterns, and the memoir all combine to create a narrative that's impossible to ignore. It's not just about what was shown, it's about what it revealed, what was left unsaid, and the questions that keep piling up. Every unanswered detail, every vanished post, and every reinvention adds another layer to the story, keeping viewers engaged and curious. And if you think this chapter is the end, it's only the beginning. The deeper connections, family tensions, and untold histories promise even more revelations. Stay tuned, because the story isn't over, and the next layer of truth is waiting to be uncovered.